Most people spend their lives waiting to be heard. They believe that their value is measured by how much space they take up in a room, how quickly they offer an opinion, or how loudly they announce their intentions. They think that to be powerful, you must be the loudest voice at the table. But have you ever noticed that the most dangerous person in the room is often the one sitting in the corner, saying absolutely nothing? While everyone else is busy performing, arguing, or justifying their existence, this person is observing. They are gathering data, mastering their internal state, and waiting for the exact moment when their presence alone will command more respect than 1,000 shouted words. You have been trained to believe that silence is weakness, that if you aren't projecting your thoughts, you are irrelevant. This is a lie designed to keep you reactive and easily manipulated. What if I told you that by constantly seeking validation through speech, you are actually stripping yourself of your greatest competitive advantage? The ancient Stoics understood a hidden truth. Silence is not the absence of power, it is the ultimate expression of it. In a world of infinite noise, the ability to remain quiet, observant, and composed is a superpower that most people will never possess. Today, we are going to dismantle the need for external validation and unlock the silent strength that resides within you. If you are ready to stop performing for the crowd and start mastering your own reality, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Hidden Trap of External Validation. Target 350 words. The most insidious trap you face today is the quiet belief that you are only as good as the reaction you receive from others. We live in a society that has weaponized the feedback loop. Every time you post a thought, share a goal, or seek an opinion, you are inadvertently training your brain to crave the dopamine hit of external approval. This is not just a modern social media phenomenon. It is a fundamental flaw in the human condition that the Stoics identified centuries ago. They called it living for the gallery. The problem is that when you live for the gallery, you lose your internal compass. You start making decisions not based on what is virtuous, rational, or necessary, but based on what will gain you the most applause or the least criticism. You become a slave to the opinions of people who, in many cases, don't even know what they want for their own lives. You are outsourcing your self-worth to a marketplace of fickle emotions. Think about the last time you felt a need to set the record straight or prove someone wrong. That impulse didn't come from a place of strength, it came from a deep-seated insecurity. It was your ego demanding that the world recognize your value because, deep down, you weren't fully convinced of it yourself. When you chase validation, you are essentially signaling to everyone around you that your sense of self is fragile. People can smell this. They sense that you are needy for their approval, and instead of respecting you, they learn how to control you. They learn that if they withhold praise, you will try harder. If they offer a subtle slight, you will become defensive. You have handed them the remote control to your emotional state. The Stoic, however, understands that validation is a trap. Marcus Aurelius, a man who held the most powerful position in the world, often reminded himself that the opinions of others were irrelevant. He knew that even if the entire Roman Empire praised him, it would not make his actions more virtuous. Conversely, if the entire empire condemned him, it would not change his character. He anchored his identity in his own discipline, his own mind, and his own moral integrity. To break free from this, you must first recognize the performance you put on every day. Observe how often you speak just to ensure you are seen. Observe how often you seek agreement before you commit to a path. This is the hidden problem. You have confused being heard with being powerful. Real power is silent because it does not need to justify its existence. It is self-evident. When you stop looking for the nod of approval from others, you stop being a participant in their game and start becoming the architect of your own. Most people spend their lives reacting. Few learn the power of remaining calm, silent, and in control. If something in today's message resonated deeply with you, it's because a stronger version of yourself is trying to emerge. Thousands have already discovered the principles inside the silent power, and many say they wish they had learned them years earlier. Plus 5. Exclusive bonuses. The silent power reveals timeless Stoic lessons for mastering emotions, building unshakable confidence, commanding respect without speaking, and developing the mental strength that cannot be broken by criticism, rejection, or adversity. The question is simple: will you continue reacting to life, or start mastering it? Get instant access through the first pinned comment and begin your journey toward true self-mastery today. The most common trap keeping people stagnant today is the false belief that information equals influence. We live in the expert era, where everyone feels compelled to post their take, offer their unsolicited advice, and lecture others on how to live. You have been conditioned to believe that if you aren't broadcasting your knowledge, you are invisible. You think that being top of mind means being the most vocal person in the room. This is a catastrophic error in judgment that stems from a misunderstanding of how respect is actually earned. In the professional and personal spheres, there is a distinct difference between being loud and being authoritative. A loud person is easily ignored because their voice is a constant background hum, predictable and exhausting. An authoritative person, however, understands the psychological principle of scarcity. When you speak constantly, you devalue your own currency. By the time you say something that truly matters, the audience is already desensitized to your voice because you've spent all day polluting the airwaves with trivial commentary. The error here is the assumption that your value is tied to the volume of your output. We see this in the workplace. The person who dominates the meeting isn't always the one with the best solution. They are often just the one most terrified of silence. They fear that if they stop talking, someone will realize they have nothing of substance to add. By contrast, the truly competent individual observes the chaos, synthesizes the core problem, and waits. When they finally speak, they don't just add to the noise, they provide the signal. They don't seek to impress, they seek to solve. Stoicism teaches us that we should be like a rock against which the waves break. The rock doesn't shout at the ocean, it stands firm. If you find yourself needing to explain your actions to justify them, you are already losing the battle. The need to explain is a symptom of doubt. If you were truly confident in your position, the outcome would speak for itself. You wouldn't need to garnish your life with verbal justifications. By constantly attempting to prove your expertise, you actually reveal your insecurity. The more you feel the need to set the record straight or argue your point on every platform, the more you signal to others that you are seeking their validation to settle your own internal score. True wisdom is demonstrated through the consistency of your character and the quality of your results, not the intensity of your rhetoric. To overcome this, you must adopt the strategic silence protocol. Before you offer an opinion, ask yourself, does this add tangible value, or am I just satisfying my ego's need to be acknowledged? Most of the time, the answer will be the latter. When you refrain from speaking, you create a vacuum. In that vacuum, others will naturally look to you, wondering what you are thinking. That is where real influence is born. Stop trying to convince the world of your worth through words. Let your performance become so undeniable that you never have to speak a word in your own defense. Now that you understand the danger of seeking external validation and the fallacy of the loud expert, you need the concrete mechanic to turn this philosophy into a lived reality. You need a habit that breaks the reaction reflex. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their autonomy. You hit the alarm, you reach for your phone, you absorb news, emails, and notifications before you've even had a chance to breathe. In that moment, you aren't a person, you are a programmed machine responding to external stimuli. I call the habit that fixes this the Stoic threshold. It is the practice of deliberate non-engagement for the first 10 minutes of your day. No input, no output, no phone, no social media, no news, and absolutely no verbal communication with others. It sounds deceptively simple, but for 99% of the population, it is the hardest thing they will ever try to do. Why? Because your brain has been trained to crave the input. You have been conditioned to believe that if you aren't plugged in, you are missing out. But consider the psychological mechanism here. Every time you check your phone the moment you wake up, you are signaling to your subconscious that other people's agendas take priority over your own clarity. You are essentially saying, "World, tell me what to feel, what to worry about, and what to do." You are voluntarily entering a state of high alert reaction before your rational mind has even fully booted up. The Stoic threshold is about creating a mental gap. In that gap, you stop being a reactor and start being an architect. When you stay silent and unplugged during these 10 minutes, you are training your brain's neuroplasticity to remain calm in the face of chaos. You are exercising the muscle of voluntary restraint. It's not about meditation in the traditional sense, it's about tactical discipline. When you do this, you realize something profound. The world doesn't end if you don't answer that text immediately. The world doesn't stop spinning if you don't scroll through your feed. You reclaim the first 10 minutes of your life, and in doing so, you reclaim the power to set the emotional temperature of your entire day. If you can control the first 10 minutes, you can control the next 14 hours. This habit is the foundation of the sovereign mind. It's not about how much time you spend. It's about the fact that you chose to control the input. You are no longer Pavlov's dog, waiting for the bell to ring so you can start salivating for engagement. You are the master of your own internal landscape. And the most dangerous thing you can do for your potential is to neglect this. Because if you can't control your start, you will spend the rest of the day simply trying to fix the damage you caused by reacting to things that didn't matter. Chapter 4. The Psychology of the Empty Vessel. Target 350-550 words. To truly understand why the loudest person in the room is often the most ignored, we must look at the psychological mechanism of what I call the empty vessel effect. In social psychology, we understand that humans possess an innate desire to be perceived as competent. However, there is a fundamental cognitive shortcut, or heuristic, that observers use to evaluate power. The law of scarcity applied to communication. When you speak incessantly, you are projecting an empty vessel. You are signaling to the subconscious of everyone around you that you are desperate to fill the silence, which implies that your internal state is unstable. You're essentially broadcasting a lack of substance. Psychologically, an observer perceives a person who talks too much as someone who is seeking external validation to confirm their own existence. In contrast, when you remain silent, you create a high-value vacuum. Because you are not offering your thoughts for free, people instinctively assign a higher value to your potential insights. This is not a game of manipulation, it is a fundamental shift in how your brain processes social status. When you stay silent, you become an enigma. The human brain is hardwired to try and solve the people it encounters. If you are always talking, you are an open book, predictable, readable, and easily dismissed. But if you are quiet and observant, you remain an unsolved puzzle. This keeps others in a state of high engagement regarding you. They wonder what you are thinking, they look to you for cues, and they weigh your reactions more heavily. You are no longer just another voice in the choir, you have become the conductor of the room's energy. The psychological danger, however, is that most people are terrified of being perceived as empty, so they overcompensate by filling every gap with words. They think, if I don't speak, people will think I'm unintelligent. The irony is that the moment they open their mouth to prove their intelligence, they often do the exact opposite. They reveal their nerves, their neediness, and their lack of focus. Stoicism provides the ultimate cognitive override for this fear. It teaches us to differentiate between impressing and being. When you seek to impress, you are catering to the psychology of the crowd. When you seek to be, you are operating from the psychology of the sovereign. You must realize that your worth does not fluctuate based on whether you are currently being understood or admired. When you internalize this, the empty vessel fear vanishes. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself because you understand that your presence, tempered by silence, is the most powerful signal of competence you can send. You become the observer, the one who watches the dynamic of the room and only speaks when the signal is clear. In a world full of people frantically trying to convince others of their worth, the person who doesn't feel the need to do so is the one who ultimately wins the respect of all. Most people spend their lives reacting. Few learn the power of remaining calm, silent, and in control. If something in today's message resonated deeply with you, it's because a stronger version of yourself is trying to emerge. Thousands have already discovered the principles inside the silent power, and many say they wish they had learned them years earlier. Plus 5. Exclusive bonuses. The silent power reveals timeless Stoic lessons for mastering emotions, building unshakable confidence, commanding respect without speaking, and developing the mental strength that cannot be broken by criticism, rejection, or adversity. The question is simple: will you continue reacting to life, or start mastering it? Get instant access through the first pinned comment and begin your journey toward true self-mastery today. To understand how silence translates into tactical dominance, we must look away from modern corporate theory and toward the ancient battlefield. Consider the Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Africanus. While his contemporaries in the Roman Senate were notorious for their loud debates, grandiose speeches, and constant political posturing, Scipio operated on a different frequency. He understood a principle that most leaders miss. The battlefield is won not by the man who shouts the loudest, but by the man who observes the most. Before Scipio engaged Hannibal at the Battle of Zama, one of the most decisive clashes in antiquity, he did not spend his time rallying his troops with theatrical speeches or arguing with his political rivals. Instead, he spent his nights in near total silence. He walked the perimeter of his camp alone. He listened to the movement of the wind, the rustle of the enemy's patrols, and the rhythm of his own men. While Hannibal was a master of grand, loud maneuvers, Scipio was a master of the silent adjustment. He observed the terrain, calculated the exhaustion of the enemy, and waited. He remained an enigma to his own subordinates. They wanted to know his plans. They wanted to hear him reassure them with long, comforting narratives. But Scipio knew that if he spoke his plans, he gave his enemies a target. If he announced his intentions, he allowed his opposition to prepare. By staying silent, he forced the opposition to guess. He cultivated an aura of mystery that unnerved his adversaries. When he finally gave the command to engage, it wasn't a roar of desperation. It was a surgical, precise order that changed the course of history. This is the Stoic lesson of the silent general. Information is a weapon. Your silence is the armor that keeps that weapon secret. Most people treat information like a currency they must spend immediately to feel important. They tell everyone their next big move, their upcoming project, or their secret strategy. By doing this, you are effectively disarming yourself before the battle even begins. You are providing your rivals, or simply the chaotic forces of the world, the exact blueprint of how to disrupt you. Scipio's silence wasn't passivity, it was a strategic choice. He understood that when you are quiet, people project their own anxieties onto you. They assume you have a plan even when you are simply observing. They assume you are strong even when you are just resting. This perception, once established, gives you a massive psychological advantage. You become the one who acts on the world, rather than the one the world acts upon. To apply this to your life, look at your professional and personal projects. Are you broadcasting your intentions, or are you building in the shadows? Every time you announce a goal, you satisfy the part of your brain that wants the reward without the work. The ancient Stoics knew that true progress is forged in silence. When you keep your plans internal, you keep your energy focused. You don't leak your intent. You don't invite premature criticism. You become like Scipio, an observer of the terrain who moves only when the victory is all but guaranteed. Your silence is not a void. It is the strategic space where your masterstroke is being prepared. We have discussed the philosophy, the psychology, and the historical precedents. Now it is time for the mechanical application. You cannot simply think your way into being the strongest person in the room. You must physically train your biology to handle the urge to react. Most people are operating on a high-speed, low-intelligence reflex loop. When a problem occurs, their cortisol spikes, their pulse quickens, and they blurt out a response. This is biological, not intellectual. To become truly silent and powerful, you must introduce a physical circuit breaker into your nervous system. I call this the tactical pause. It is not a suggestion, it is a rigorous discipline. The next time you are in a meeting, a confrontation, or even a casual conversation where you feel the sudden burning urge to interject, defend your reputation, or show how much you know, you must perform the following three-step protocol. The physical anchor. The moment the impulse to speak strikes, immediately force your tongue to the roof of your mouth and tighten your glutes. This seems trivial, but it creates a physical micro-tension that interrupts the brain's automatic neural pathway. It moves you from a state of pure impulse to a state of conscious, physical awareness. The breath count. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and exhale for 4. This is the physiological reset button. It forces your parasympathetic nervous system to take over, overriding the fight or flight reflex that makes people act out in moments of stress. During these 12 seconds, you are effectively buying time to let your rational, stoic mind re-engage. The Stoic audit. Ask yourself, if I speak now, am I adding light or am I adding heat? If the words serve no purpose beyond stroking your ego or alleviating your own discomfort with silence, you swallow them. You do not speak. You nod. You observe. You maintain your posture. By doing this, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are moving from a reactive creature to an intentional agent. Every time you successfully execute a tactical pause, you are building a new, stronger pathway. You are training the world to recognize that when you finally do speak, it is not an impulse, it is a decision. The beauty of this exercise is its invisibility. No one knows you are holding your tongue or controlling your breath. They only see a person who appears unshakable, composed, and mysteriously calm. They see someone who doesn't panic when the pressure is on. This perception is your greatest asset. It makes you the anchor in any room. People are naturally drawn to the person who remains still, while everyone else is frantic. By mastering the tactical pause, you stop being a participant in other people's chaos and start becoming the master of your own presence. You aren't just sitting quietly, you are observing the weaknesses in the situation so you can act with precision when the time is actually right. Chapter 7. The final transformation. Becoming the architect of your own silence. Target, 350-550 words. We have dismantled the illusions that held you back. You now understand that validation is a trap, that the loud expert is a symptom of insecurity, and that your internal state is the only true territory you own. You have learned to implement the Stoic threshold to command your mornings, mastered the psychology of the empty vessel to gain influence, and adopted the tactical pause to bypass the reflex of reaction. You have seen how history's greatest minds, like Scipio Africanus, weaponized their silence to navigate the chaos of the world. Now we arrive at the final transformation, the shift from practicing silence to embodying it. The ultimate goal of Stoicism is not to create a person who never speaks, but a person who never speaks by accident. The final stage of this journey is the transition from trying to be quiet to becoming a person who is naturally, unshakably composed. This is what it means to be the architect of your own silence. You are no longer resisting the urge to talk. You have outgrown the need to fill the void. Most people spend their lives in a state of performance. They feel that if they stop talking, they will cease to be. They are like actors on a stage, terrified that if the lights go down and the music stops, the audience will realize there is no one actually there. But you have learned that the performance was exactly what was keeping you small. By stepping off the stage and into the arena of your own life, you have discovered that your value is not a social construct to be negotiated. It is a bedrock of character to be cultivated. As you move forward, remember that silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of focus. When you remain silent, you are not withholding your thoughts from the world. You are hoarding your energy for the things that matter. You are no longer a servant to the opinion of the crowd. You are a sovereign entity who moves with intent, speaks with precision, and lives by a standard that others only pretend to have. The strongest person in the room is usually the one who is silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have nothing to prove. They are already whole. They are already aligned. They don't need the validation of a nod, the applause of a peer, or the defense of a critic. They are occupied with the work of their own growth. When you reach this state, you don't just act like a Stoic. You become a person of substance. Your presence alone will change the energy of any room you enter, because people can instinctively sense when they are in the presence of someone who cannot be swayed, intimidated, or manipulated. You are no longer drifting, you are leading. And it all began the moment you chose to stop the noise and start the work. Most people spend their lives reacting. Few learn the power of remaining calm, silent, and in control. If something in today's message resonated deeply with you, it's because a stronger version of yourself is trying to emerge. Thousands have already discovered the principles inside the silent power, and many say they wish they had learned them years earlier. +5. Exclusive bonuses. The silent power reveals timeless Stoic lessons for mastering emotions, building unshakable confidence, commanding respect without speaking, and developing the mental strength that cannot be broken by criticism, rejection, or adversity. The question is simple. Will you continue reacting to life, or start mastering it? Get instant access through the first pinned comment and begin your journey toward true self-mastery today.